Now look, I think it's very fair to say that if we look back at 2023, it was absolutely, without a doubt, the worst year for Walt Disney as a whole when it comes to all of their divisions. The Walt Disney Company with their handling of Marvel Studios, Lucasfilm, Walt Disney Animation Studios, even Pixar. I mean, there's been a lot of things happening with all the divisions, and it so happened to land on the 100th year anniversary back in 2023, and it's not looking good for this year, and it's most certainly not looking good for 2025. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. So, we already know that The Marvels was one of the worst MCU films in history. We knew that it was going to lead to that moment months ago of having the worst box office opening in MCU history, and it actually ended up happening, and that's exactly why we had director Nia DaCosta head into damage control. We had Brie Larson heavily defending the film through and through to make it seem as if this movie was universally accepted, when in reality it was universally rejected. Now, focusing on everything happening with Brie Larson and her overall, situation over at Marvel Studios and Walt Disney as a whole, and what's been going on with Bob Iger. There's been a lot of things going on with their way of restructuring the Marvel Cinematic Universe. However, when it comes down to Brie Larson and how she's recently been fired from multiple Marvel projects under Marvel Studios, things are only getting worse for everything related to Bob Iger. Let's get into it. Now, specifically, we already know that Kevin Feige is not helping. He's only making matters worse as well, especially for everything happening with Captain America 4. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the week. However, with, of course, Bob Iger and the rest of the Disney heads already actually heading into damage control for both Lucasfilm and Marvel Studios. However, with The Marvels listed as one of the worst films for Disney in 2023, recently Brie Larson delivered the following after her firing from multiple Marvel projects by Disney and Marvel Studios. Now, Larson went on to deliver the following. I just think fans really need to keep their biased and entitled opinions to themselves, and quite frankly, I find it to be disgusting behavior when fans, if you even want to call them that, celebrate when an actress loses work or isn't wanted or needed anymore by a studio and a franchise, for example, as massive as Marvel. As a feminist, and of course one who supports women, and I find women are very important in this industry and should really be the ones running the show, because men had their chance to do that on so many levels for so many decades. I just think that we are in an era now where women are making up for lost time in the film industry, and it's really beginning to work out for the better. I think we did an absolute amazing job on The Marvels. You are always going to deal with a toxic male fan base that remains frightened of women taking the center stage. I thought that couldn't be any more clear after fans were celebrating how our film didn't hit a specific box office margin, and it's just such childish behavior. Looking back at The Marvels, I truly believe it was one of the best additions to the universe, since it does empower women in both the story and in the film industry. I just find it offensive that studios listen to such a loud minority of fans, shouting out into a void on what they want to see on the big screen. It really is something difficult to deal with as an actress like myself. At one point, the studio wants to empower women, then suddenly you are not wanted anymore and expendable because of this or that, with no explanation. So look, there is something there for Captain Marvel, I will say, but my time is done with that, and I really think fans are to blame for that. I think it's time for grown men to grow up already. It's a comic book, and adaptations of those comics shouldn't really focus on men all the time. It's about time that we enter a new era in film, especially with the superhero hype and trend, to focus more on women. I mean, there is just so much to tell in an untouched demographic. I just feel Bob needs to organize himself as he runs the show and needs to understand what he really wants with this franchise, because it's all over the place and not going in the right direction to honor women truly. Brie Larson continues. It's very toxic for a studio to listen to fans who celebrate the failure of a film, who obviously have an issue with misogyny. It's a growing problem with the public and their view of women in film. I really hope everyone checks out The Marvels and begins to realize how important of a film this truly is, so that they can begin to understand that it is truly misunderstood as a film. Now, guys, let me just pause here quick for one moment. Now, The Marvels not only failed in theaters, but it also failed on Disney+. I don't know if you guys knew this, but the ratings, or, the amount of people tuning in to the digital version on Disney+, the streamable version, were really just a disaster for Disney+. And it couldn't be more further proof that this movie was just bad, very bad all around. The directing, the writing, the execution, the marketing, the overall focus, and the flow of the story. It did not work out at all. It was catered to a demographic that wasn't really going to check out this film to begin with. Now, look, when we know that Brie Larson is obviously pointing the finger at the critics, and the critics that are right about this movie, by the way, it just is very revealing how out of touch with reality these actresses really are. Those like Tatiana Maslany and Brie Larson, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and among others like Rachel Zegler. I mean, the list goes on and on of those associated with Disney. So, on top of that, she goes on to conclude, "I just feel that we are dealing with a silent majority," she says, "of fans that support the film but are afraid to open up with their opinion in fear of the minority ridiculing them because of having that different opinion on the Marvel Universe. I support my loyal co-stars and others that I have communicated with in this industry. My heart goes out to Tatiana and what happened with her She-Hulk role. Just all the flack women get in this industry, especially for superhero films." So, she's really casting a lot of blame, and wrongfully, on critics, people that had a real opinion and a real valid reason to not check out the Marvels. I mean, just look at the numbers, just look at the reviews. I mean, it's all telling right then and there. And that's exactly why 2023 ended off quite terribly for Disney, specifically with Marvel Studios. And the movie Wish did not help at all either. So within that November to December range in 2023, it was a colossal failure for Bob Iger, and a colossal failure as well for the Walt Disney Company and the 100th year anniversary of Disney in general. It really was like the true icing on the cake for Disney's failure. But when you look at things like this, we know that there's a lot of problems looming for 2025. Marvel Studios is already doubling down on expensive failures with their DEI agenda. And for those of you that do not know what that means, it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is what's plaguing everything related to what you grew up with. That should be a good story, but it's getting completely run over with an agenda. And we're seeing this happen with Star Wars, it's happening with Marvel, it's already starting to happen with a lot of upcoming Disney live-action remakes of the animated classics. The biggest one of all is going to be Snow White 2025. That's going to be one of the big failures of quarter one of 2025 alongside Captain America 4. So overall, I would love to hear what you all have to say about the ongoing scenario with Marvel Studios and the whole Brie Larson situation and everything that Bob Iger has been doing and ruining. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.